The crystal people of Kalari Prime lived peaceful lives for thousands of years. Their bodies were made of clear, shining crystal that changed colors with their feelings. They had never hurt anyone and never expected anyone to hurt them. But that morning, their beautiful blue sky turned black with strange ships. Elder Thane stood in a great crystal hall where his people made important decisions. His body flickered with red and orange lights, showing how scared he was. Outside, explosions lit up their crystal cities. The enemy ships looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh. The Vorthak eat everything, Thane said, his voice shaking like tiny bells in the wind. They don't just take our resources or make us slaves. They consume entire worlds until nothing is left but dead rock floating in space. The crystal people had heard stories about the Vorthak horde. These creatures traveled from planet to planet like a plague of locusts. They would land on a world, strip away everything that had life, and move on. 17 beautiful worlds had already become empty graveyards because of them. Far away from Kalari Prime, at the edge of known space, aliens from many different worlds worked together at a big monitoring station. They listened to radio signals and watched for dangers. Commander Vex had 4 arms and blue skin. He worked for the peacekeepers, but even they couldn't fight the Vorthak. When the desperate message from Kalari Prime reached the station, Vex felt his heart sink. He had seen what happened to other worlds. The Vorthak would land like a swarm of angry bees. Their bioships would release acid that melted buildings. Their ground troops would hunt down every living thing. Vex rushed to the emergency meeting hall where representatives from dozens of alien species gathered. The room buzzed with worried voices speaking in different languages. Some aliens looked like walking trees, others like floating jellyfish, and some like giant butterflies with 6 wings. 17 worlds have already fallen, Vex announced to the crowd. His voice carried the weight of tragedy. The Kalari are completely peaceful. They don't even have weapons. The Vorthak will wipe them out in just a few days. The alien council members made nervous sounds. Some clicked their claws, others hummed sadly, and a few changed colors to show their distress. They all wanted to help the crystal people, but they knew the truth. Most galactic species were either too weak or too peaceful to fight the Vorthak horde. The gentle folk of Andrus had tried to help another world once. The Vorthak had eaten them too. The tree shepherds of Zephyr were strong but moved too slowly. The cloud dancers were fast but had no weapons. Every species had a reason why they couldn't face this threat. Then old Counselor Drex spoke up. He was ancient even by his species' long lives, and his voice carried wisdom and fear. There is one option we haven't discussed. The quarantine system. Sol 3. The meeting hall went completely silent. Even the translator machines seemed to pause. Every alien in the room knew about Earth, the death world at the edge of their territory. Stories about its inhabitants were told in whispers. Earth was a planet covered in violence. Its gravity was crushing. Its weather was deadly. Poisonous gases filled its air, and its surface was covered with dangerous predators. But the most dangerous things on Earth were its intelligent species, humans. We promised never to contact them, Commander Vex said, his 4 arms crossed in the gesture his people used to show strong disagreement. The quarantine exists for good reasons. The stories about humans were terrifying. They came from a world where everything tried to kill them, so they had learned to kill everything else first. Their own history was filled with wars. They fought with weapons that could destroy entire cities. They even fought each other for sport. But Counselor Drex looked around at all the frightened faces in the room. Would you rather explain our caution to the ghosts of the Kalari people? He asked quietly. The vote was close, but desperation won. Within minutes, the most dangerous message in galactic history was sent toward the small yellow star called Sol. Deep in the human solar system, on a military base built inside Earth's moon, Admiral Jake Morrison was finishing his morning coffee. He was a tough man with gray hair and scars on his hands from old battles. Luna Base was humanity's farthest outpost, watching the stars for any signs of trouble. Lieutenant Amy Foster, his young aide, burst into his office with a tablet in her hands. Her face was pale with excitement and disbelief. "Sir, you need to see this. We just received a transmission from somewhere else." Morrison took the tablet and read the message. His weathered face grew hard as stone as he understood what he was reading. Aliens were real. They needed help. Innocent people were about to die. "Get me President Williams on the secure channel," he ordered, his voice carrying the authority of a man used to making life and death decisions. "Priority Alpha. And wake up every member of the Defense Council. All of them. Right now." As the emergency calls went out across Earth's military command structure, something deep and ancient began to stir in the human soul. For all their violence, for all their wars, humans had one rule that they never broke: protect the innocent. Somewhere in the darkness of space, crystal people were crying for help. That was all humanity needed to know. The sleeping giant was about to wake up, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Pentagon's underground situation room had seen many crises, but nothing like this. Within 1 hour of Admiral Morrison's call, the most powerful people on Earth gathered around a massive table covered with screens and maps. The room hummed with nervous energy as military leaders tried to process the impossible news. President Robert Williams walked in wearing his old Navy uniform, something he only did during the worst emergencies. His gray hair was perfectly combed, but his eyes showed the weight of leading 3 billion people. Defense Secretary Lisa Parker sat to his right, her laptop already open with files marked "Top Secret." General Mark Davis, the toughest soldier America had ever produced, drummed his fingers on the table. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," President Williams said, his voice so calm it was scary. Crystal people from another planet sent out a cry for help. The aliens who heard it looked around their whole galaxy and decided that we were their best option. The giant screen at the front of the room showed Admiral Morrison's face from Luna Base. Behind him, technicians were running back and forth, preparing for something huge. "Yes, Mr. President. The Vorthack horde has already destroyed 17 entire worlds. The Kalari people are completely peaceful. They don't even have police, let alone an army." General Davis leaned forward, his scarred hands flat on the table. He had fought in 3 wars and never lost a battle. "How much time do we have?" "Our best estimate is 72 hours before the Kalari are completely wiped out," Morrison replied. "Maybe less." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Somewhere in space, an entire civilization of innocent people was about to be murdered, and Earth was the only planet that could help them. Secretary Parker was the first to break the silence. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. "We cannot let genocide happen while we have the power to stop it." President Williams stood up slowly. Every person in the room had sworn an oath to protect America, but this was bigger than any one country. This was about protecting life itself. "Admiral Morrison, you have my full presidential authorization to deploy the entire solar defense fleet. What are your rules of engagement?" Morrison's smile appeared on the screen, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just been given permission to hunt. "Whatever it takes, Mr. President." The moment those words were spoken, alarms began ringing in military bases across the solar system. For 50 years, humanity had been building weapons and ships in secret, preparing for threats they hoped would never come. Now it was time to use them. Mars Station had been disguised as a simple research outpost, but it was actually the largest military shipyard humans had ever built. Deep inside the red planet's crust, massive engines began to roar. The Titan-class dreadnoughts, sleeping giants that had never seen battle, began their awakening sequence. The UDF Liberty was the first to power up. She was over 2 miles long and armed with weapons that could crack a moon in half. Her fusion reactor, bigger than a city block, came online for the first time in 20 years. Next came the UDF Constitution, then the UDF Freedom, and 8 more ships just as deadly. Each Titan-class ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small country. Their armor was made from materials found only in the cores of dead stars. Their weapons could fire projectiles at nearly the speed of light. And they were just the beginning. On Earth, at Fort Bragg Space Command, Colonel Mike Johnson stood before 3,000 of the toughest soldiers humanity had ever trained. These were the Solar Marines, men and women who had volunteered to fight in the vacuum of space. They wore powered armor that could survive anything and carried weapons designed to kill things much bigger than humans. "Boys and girls," Colonel Johnson said, his voice echoing through the massive hangar, "we just got word that there are some alien bullies picking on innocent people. I think it's time we showed them Earth's brand of justice." The Marines cheered so loud that the sound could be heard 3 miles away. These soldiers had trained their whole lives for a war that might never come. Now they were about to fight the most important battle in human history. Hospital ships the size of cities began loading medical supplies. The UDF Mercy could treat 1 million patients at once. The UDF Hope carried enough medicine to heal an entire world. Engineers prepared construction equipment to rebuild whatever the war destroyed. But the most amazing thing was happening in space itself. Alien sensors that had been watching Earth for decades suddenly lit up with readings they couldn't understand. What they had thought was a primitive world with simple technology was revealing weapons beyond their imagination. Commander Vex stared at his instruments in disbelief. "These readings can't be correct," he said to his assistant. "This shows enough military power to conquer half the galaxy." His assistant, a young alien with 3 eyes, double-checked everything. "Sir, the readings are accurate. We're detecting 12 massive warships, each one bigger than our largest space station. And there are hundreds of smaller ships surrounding them." Back on Earth, President Williams watched the deployment reports with grim satisfaction. "How long until the fleet reaches Kalari space?" 48 hours at maximum speed, Admiral Morrison replied. "We'll arrive with time to spare." The President nodded. "Then God help anyone who stands in our way." Across the galaxy, the peaceful crystal people of Kalari Prime huddled in their shelters, waiting to die. They had no idea that help was already on the way, traveling faster than light through the darkness of space. The human fleet was coming, and nothing would stop them from protecting the innocent. The edge of Earth's solar system had never seen anything like it. For the first time in human history, the entire solar defense fleet gathered in one place. What the aliens saw through their long-distance sensors made them question everything they thought they knew about the small blue planet they had dismissed as primitive. 12 massive ships floated in perfect formation against the backdrop of stars. These were the Titan-class dreadnoughts, each one stretching over 2 miles from front to back. Their dark hulls were covered with weapons that looked like metal thorns. Rail guns that could punch holes through asteroids lined their sides. Particle cannons capable of melting through any known armor sat in rotating turrets. But the dreadnoughts were just the beginning. Around them, like sharks circling their prey, hundreds of smaller warships moved in precise patterns. Destroyer-class vessels bristled with missile pods. Cruiser-class ships carried enough firepower to level entire cities. And from the massive carrier ships, clouds of fighter craft poured out like angry metal wasps defending their hive. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UDF Vengeance. Through the giant windows, he could see the most powerful war fleet humanity had ever assembled. The bridge around him buzzed with activity as hundreds of crew members prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. Captain Beth Rodriguez walked up to him carrying a data pad filled with the final reports. She was one of the best tactical officers in the Solar Navy, known for her ability to coordinate complex operations. Her dark eyes showed the same determination that burned in every human heart. "All ships are ready for the hyperspace jump, Admiral," she reported in a crisp, professional voice. "The hospital ships Mercy and Hope are loaded with enough medical supplies to treat an entire planet. Our marine transport ships are carrying the 1st, 3rd, and 7th battalions. That's over 9,000 of our best soldiers." Morrison nodded as he watched the massive hospital ship Mercy glide past the bridge windows. The ship was as big as the island of Manhattan, painted bright white with huge red crosses that could be seen from millions of miles away. It carried the most advanced medical equipment humans had ever built, along with doctors and nurses ready to save alien lives they had never seen before. The Mercy was followed by its sister ship, the Hope, equally massive and equally dedicated to healing rather than destroying. These floating cities of compassion showed the two sides of human nature, the warriors who would fight to protect the innocent, and the healers who would put them back together afterward. "Sir," Communications Officer Tom Bradley called from his station across the bridge, "we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're asking us to reconsider our mission." Morrison turned toward the communications station, his weathered face showing a cold smile that would have frightened his enemies. "Tell them we appreciate their concern for our safety. Then tell them we're coming anyway, and nothing in this galaxy is going to stop us." The alien message had been predictable. The Galactic Council was terrified of what they had unleashed. Their sensors were showing them military power beyond their understanding. Ships bigger than their space stations. Weapons that defied their science. And worst of all, these weapons belonged to the Deathworld species they had spent decades avoiding. In the depths of space, alien observation posts watched in growing horror as the human fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. Commander Vex stared at his sensor readings, his four hands shaking as he tried to process the numbers. "This is impossible," he whispered to his crew. "Our computers show enough firepower to conquer half the known galaxy. How did they build all this without us knowing?" His sensor operator, a young alien with large eyes adapted for seeing in the dark, double-checked all the readings. "Sir, they've been building these ships for decades. They hid shipyards inside their planets and moons. We thought they were just mining operations." The truth was finally becoming clear to the aliens who had dismissed Earth as primitive. Humans had been preparing for interstellar war long before they made contact with other species. While alien civilizations focused on peace and exploration, humans had been building the tools needed to protect themselves and others from the dangers of a hostile universe. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace all at once, their massive ships disappearing into the twisted space between stars. The synchronized jump was a display of military precision that left alien observers stunned. Most species needed hours of preparation for a single ship to make the jump safely. The humans had launched over 400 ships in perfect coordination. As the human fleet raced through hyperspace toward Kalari Prime, they left behind sensor readings that would change galactic politics forever. Every alien military analyst in the galaxy began frantically recalculating threat assessments. The species they had quarantined as too dangerous had just proven exactly why that quarantine existed. Meanwhile, on the crystal world of Kalari Prime, Elder Thane stood in what remained of his beautiful city. The Vorthak bioweapons had turned his people's artistic crystal spires into melted slag. The streets that had once reflected rainbow light now ran with the acidic blood of the invaders' creatures. His crystalline body flickered with the deep purple colors of despair. Around him, the few surviving Kalari huddled in underground shelters, waiting for death to find them. They had perhaps 6 hours before the Vorthak finished consuming their world. Elder Thane looked up at the smoke-filled sky where enemy ships blotted out their sun. He whispered a prayer to the crystal spirits of his ancestors, asking them to remember his people's peaceful ways. He had no idea that racing toward them through the darkness of space was a fleet of warships carrying the fury of an entire species that had decided the crystal people were worth saving. The human fleet was coming, and the Vorthak horde was about to discover why the rest of the galaxy feared the children of Earth. The Vorthak horde had been feeding on Kalari Prime for 2 days, their massive bioships sucking the life out of the beautiful crystal world. Hive Queen Scarth floated in her command chamber, watching her children strip away every living thing from the planet's surface. Her grotesque body pulsed with satisfaction as another crystal city was dissolved by her acid-spitting creatures. This was how it always went. The Vorthak would arrive at a peaceful world, overwhelm any weak defenses, and then feast for weeks until nothing remained but dead rock. 17 worlds had already fed her ever-growing horde, and this crystal world would be the 18th. But then space itself seemed to explode above her fleet. The human ships dropped out of hyperspace like predators leaping on their prey. 12 massive dreadnoughts appeared in perfect battle formation, their weapon systems already glowing with deadly energy. Before the Vorthak could even react, the first human attack was already on its way. Hive Queen Scartha's sensors barely had time to register the incoming projectiles before they hit. Metal slugs the size of cars, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rail guns, smashed through her bioships like bullets through wet paper. The organic armor that had protected her fleet from every other enemy simply disintegrated under the human assault. "What are these creatures?" she screamed as one of her largest ships broke apart under the devastating attack. Her hive mind connection with her children filled with panic and confusion. Never before had the Vorthak encountered enemies who could ignore their defenses so completely. On the bridge of the UDF Vengeance, Admiral Morrison watched the destruction of the Vorthak fleet with cold satisfaction. The enemy ships looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh, but they died just like any other target when hit with enough force. "Target the largest group of enemy ships," he ordered his weapons officer. "Let's finish this quickly so we can help the survivors." The human fighter craft poured out of their carrier ships like a silver storm. Each pilot had trained for years in the dangerous asteroid belts around Earth, learning to fly through fields of spinning rocks and deadly debris. Compared to that training, outmaneuvering the slow, clumsy Vorthak bioships was almost easy. The enemy vessels tried to turn and fight, but they had evolved for attacking defenseless prey, not battling seasoned warriors. Human fighters danced around them, firing precise shots that crippled engines and destroyed weapon systems. Within minutes, the space around Kalari Prime was filled with burning wreckage. Captain Beth Rodriguez coordinated the attack from the tactical center, her calm voice cutting through the chaos of battle. "Marine dropships are launching now, Admiral. Colonel Johnson reports that his soldiers are ready to begin ground operations." "Tell him to save as many crystal people as possible," Morrison replied. "But I want every single Vorthak eliminated. No survivors, no escapees." Down on the planet's surface, the surviving Kalari huddled in underground shelters, listening to the sounds of battle above them. They had given up hope hours ago, accepting that their peaceful civilization was about to end. But now the explosions sounded different, more controlled, more purposeful. The first human marines landed in the ruins of the crystal cities like avenging angels. Their powered armor allowed them to survive in the toxic atmosphere the Vorthak had created. Their weapons were designed to kill things much larger and more dangerous than humans. Staff Sergeant Danny White led his squad through the melted remains of what had once been beautiful crystal spires. His helmet display showed the locations of Vorthak ground forces, ugly creatures that looked like giant centipedes with acid-dripping mandibles. "Remember what we're here for," he told his Marines over the radio. "These crystal people never hurt anyone in their lives. We're here to save them. That means every single bug dies today." The Marines moved through the ruins with deadly efficiency. Each soldier had trained for combat in hostile environments, from the frozen moons of Jupiter to the acid storms of Venus. Fighting alien monsters on a crystal world was just another day at the office. The Vorthak ground forces had never faced enemies like this. Their usual tactics of swarming and overwhelming didn't work against humans in powered armor. Marine weapons cut through their natural armor like hot knives through butter. What had been a massacre of innocents suddenly became a hunt, with the humans as the hunters. In space above, some Vorthak ships tried to escape the slaughter. They turned their bioships toward the edge of the system, hoping to flee and warn other hives about this new threat. But the humans had anticipated this. Captain Susan Martinez commanded the destroyer UDF Retribution, positioned perfectly to intercept any fleeing enemies. Her ship's weapons locked onto the escaping Vorthak vessels with mechanical precision. "This is for all the innocent people you murdered," she said quietly as she gave the order to fire. The destroyer's particle cannons reached out across space like fingers of pure energy, vaporizing the fleeing bioships instantly. Admiral Morrison had been clear in his orders: no Vorthack could be allowed to escape and threaten other worlds. Within 6 hours of their arrival, the human fleet had completely destroyed the Vorthack horde. The alien threat that had consumed 17 entire worlds simply ceased to exist. Space around Kalari Prime was quiet except for the gentle hum of human ships beginning rescue operations. The surviving crystal people slowly emerged from their shelters to find something they had never expected: aliens who had come to help instead of hurt. Human medics were already setting up aid stations among the ruins, their white uniforms marked with red crosses that meant healing in any language. Elder Thane walked carefully through the debris of his once beautiful city. His crystalline body flickered with colors his people had never used before, patterns that meant gratitude beyond words. He approached a human marine who was helping injured crystal people to the medical stations. Staff Sergeant White noticed the elderly alien approaching and removed his helmet, revealing a young human face marked with determination and kindness. His eyes showed the weariness of battle but also the satisfaction of protecting innocence. "Why?" Elder Thane asked in his musical voice, the only word he could manage in the human language he had quickly learned. Sergeant White looked around at his fellow Marines helping the crystal people, then back at the alien elder. His answer was simple and honest, spoken with the quiet confidence of someone who had never questioned doing the right thing. "Because somebody had to, sir. And we don't let the good guys lose." The Galactic Council chamber had witnessed many emergencies over the centuries, but never anything like this. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in stunned silence as they tried to process the impossible reports flooding in from Kalari space. The massive chamber, built to hold thousands of delegates, felt eerily quiet despite being completely full. Counselor Drex, the ancient alien who had suggested contacting Earth in the first place, stared at his data screen with all 4 of his eyes wide open in disbelief. His wrinkled hands shook as he read the same numbers over and over again, hoping they would somehow change. "This cannot be accurate," he whispered to his aide. "The Vorthack horde has been completely destroyed. Every single ship, every ground force, everything. In less than 8 hours. Commander Vex of the Altarian Peacekeepers leaned forward in his chair, his blue skin pale with shock. "Impossible. The Vorthack had bioships that could adapt to any weapon. Their hive-mind coordination made them unbeatable. They had conquered 17 worlds without losing a single major vessel." Counselor Drex looked at his old friend with tired eyes. "Had, Vex. Past tense. According to these reports, the humans didn't just defeat them. They erased them from existence." The giant viewing screen at the front of the chamber suddenly came to life, showing the image of Admiral Morrison standing on the bridge of his flagship. Behind him, the stars of Kalari space twinkled peacefully, no longer darkened by enemy ships. His weathered human face carried the quiet confidence of absolute victory. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Morrison began, his voice filling the silent chamber with calm authority. "I'm pleased to report that the threat to the Kalari people has been completely eliminated. We are now beginning full humanitarian operations to help them rebuild their world." The alien delegates gasped and whispered among themselves. Many had never seen a human before, and they were surprised by how normal he looked. This ordinary-seeming creature had just accomplished what their entire galaxy thought was impossible. President Williams appeared on the screen next to the Admiral, his formal diplomatic uniform marking him as Earth's leader. His words would change galactic politics forever. "The United States of America, representing the planet Earth and all of humanity, formally requests full diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. We believe it's time our species had a proper conversation about the future." Down on Kalari Prime, the work of rebuilding had already begun. Human engineering teams worked alongside marine units to reconstruct the beautiful crystal cities that had been melted by Vorthack weapons. Giant construction machines, transported from Earth in the bellies of cargo ships, carefully lifted new crystal spires into place. Captain Beth Rodriguez coordinated the massive relief effort from the hospital ship Mercy, which had been converted into a floating command center. Her screens showed hundreds of projects happening at once, medical stations treating injured crystal people, food distribution centers, temporary housing for refugees, and construction sites where new buildings rose from the ruins. "Admiral," she reported during their daily briefing, "Elder Thane and the Kalari leadership are trying to give us everything they own. They're offering us their most advanced technology, mining rights to their resource-rich moons, even territorial control over their star system. They keep calling us their saviors." Morrison shook his head firmly. "Tell Elder Thane that we want only one thing from his people, genuine friendship. Nothing more, nothing less." The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Species that had been planning aggressive expansion suddenly found themselves having second thoughts about their military ambitions. The hegemony of Srak had been preparing for months to invade the nearby gentle worlds, peaceful planets that would have been easy to conquer and enslave. But when their war council received the reports from Kalari Prime, they quietly cancelled their invasion fleets and ordered them back to home space. The Devourers of Korthax, a nomadic species that consumed entire planets for entertainment, had been heading toward a cluster of inhabited worlds. They changed course immediately, deciding that maybe they had enough territory after all. Across the galaxy, bullies and predators who had grown fat on the suffering of weaker species suddenly realized that there was now a bigger predator watching them. General Mark Davis, who had been appointed as Earth's first galactic military attaché, addressed the Galactic Council one final time before the human fleet left Kalari space. "Let me make something very clear to everyone listening," he said, his voice carrying the authority of Earth's military might. "Humanity does not seek to rule this galaxy. We have no interest in conquering worlds or building an empire. We seek only to protect those who cannot protect themselves." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing, "When innocent people call for help, Earth will answer. When predators threaten the peaceful, we will respond. This is not a threat to those who live in peace. This is a promise to those who prey on others." The human fleet did not return to Earth immediately after their victory. Instead, Admiral Morrison divided his ships into smaller groups that took up patrol routes along the outer edges of civilized space. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy: humanity was now watching, and the age of unchecked aggression was over. Months later, Elder Thane stood in his rebuilt Crystal Palace, its spires reaching toward the stars once again. Through his windows, he could see human patrol ships moving silently through space above his world, their presence as comforting as a parent watching over sleeping children. For the first time in the long history of his people, Elder Thane truly understood what the word "safe" meant. His crystalline body glowed with warm, peaceful colors as he watched the stars and knew that somewhere out there, the children of Earth were standing guard. The galaxy had learned an important lesson: the species from the Death World weren't just the most dangerous enemies you could face. They were also the most loyal friends the innocent could ever hope to have. And that made all the difference in a universe full of both predators and prey.